Yat da huis ago da is not gido da nihinaligi. She yaha Niagara Rockbridge and Shakia ani nishle. Ashka zohobash chin na kadina da should shade out holhana edashanale. She na kidemil daba anna din la ihahagi do na kidemil daba anna din na ki hahagi the nebach e kenshle. And they talana talaga aha will yede out ishike a konde be ek idba a hodzana ade on na shafto ad ishnal ketahat e. DJA Yahakon Division of Behavioral and Mental Health Services will Yego Yakon the Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. Akut out a Yaha DJ a Bayat Nis Kito Kodo a Yaha Ashni Bilaganak Echigodo Lesto Hala a Yaha the Ilchinadan Lenigit at the Kodoni Hizan Lenigi the Hako Kodoshi a Yaha Adan Bilaganak Echigo Kut Ashi a Yaha Dolet. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of my relatives who are watching from far and near across the great Navajo Nation and beyond. My name is Niagara Rockbridge. I'm the current reigning Miss Navajo Nation, and it is such an honor to be here with the Division of Behavioral and Mental Health Services within our Navajo Nation, who provide a much needed service to our people all across the nation and even outside, especially now during this COVID-19 pandemic. And so today, and in recognition of this month, which is February, it is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And so I have invited the Division of Behavioral Mental Health Services, also known as DBMHS, to provide this presentation to educate you and to bring awareness to this issue amongst our youth, amongst our young Navajo people across the nation and off the nation as well. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Delton Francis and Natasha Bitsui.
Go ahead, Natasha. You can go first.
Ja, ano so siya ya last change long bilagana basichin to haglini da shi do la ke tel na da shinale chinli that na shadow art conscious nish hat it so yeah it the shnidal so good morning everyone, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this recording, we welcome you to this presentation. My name is Natasha Bitsui. I am one of the prevention specialists within the Division of Behavioral and Mental Health Services. I am of the Red Left-Handed People Clan, or more formally known as the Red Bottom Clan. I am born for Anglo or white. My maternal grandparents are of the Water Flows Together clan, and my paternal grandparents are from the Skiddy Band of Pawnee. I'm based out of the Chinle Outpatient Treatment Center. So good morning, everyone.
Yeah, it's been Shay Delton Francis in Shadow. No, the Landish cheating in Schlons and Najini Bashin. Kabahanda should shay. I don't send you can aid the shinana without aid and Aro Navajo Nation Division of Behavior and Mental Health Prevention Specialist or yeah, aid shinan shinson. Laid that this and hot sa the sharan the akonde be told the shinan shnat. Aro yat a bin hideshnito. That's then out national kiddo era doesn't not do had that so gizigi. Oh, he had do decom had she's ben kilch the need all. So good morning again, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Delton Francis. I am a prevention specialist located out here in Kaibito, Arizona. And I want to thank Niagara and my colleague Natasha here for us to bring you some information today and discuss and talk about Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month.
Thank you, Mr. Francis and Ms. Batui, for joining me here today to discuss this topic, which is not widely talked about here, but we know that our young people across the Navajo Nation do deal with teen dating violence. And it is something that I feel we should nip in the bud and educate our people so that we have the resources and we can provide that to our people who will be watching this video here today. And so with that, the Division of Behavioral Mental Health Services will begin their presentation.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon again, or good evening, whenever you guys get a chance to see this presentation. I welcome you all, and I want to thank you all for joining us in this short presentation of teen dating violence. And again, my name is Delton Francis. This presentation was put together by Natasha Bitsui and I, and it is called Love is Not Abuse. Teen dating violence is out there. It does happen to a lot of our young folk who possibly might be in a relationship in middle school or high school. So this is to help educate and make aware to those individuals, and for educators and parents to take in some information and just to be patient with your teenager who might be living with you or who might be experiencing possibly some teen dating violence. So this presentation is called Love is Not Abuse. Is there anything you want to add, Natasha?
Yes, so you guys, some educators out there may have heard that there's a curriculum called Love is Not Abuse. We did adapt some of their curriculum ideas into the presentation, so that's why it's called Love is Not Abuse. So we just want to make that acknowledgement. We do appreciate that we were able to utilize some of the information found in that curriculum for both high school and college, and provide it here in a general sense, so it's not a full length training. It's more of a generalized overview of what teen dating violence is.
Okay, thank you, Natasha. So we will move forward with the slides. And this presentation intends to give a brief summary of teen dating abuse. Oftentimes, teens are unaware of what constitutes being abused. It is hidden or ignored. There is power in knowing. So in this brief statement here, it just states that a lot of teens who are now coming up in the world in school might be possibly in a relationship where they have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and oftentimes they might not recognize what abuse is. Die tselketo chike hashin sogoshin skin di asho asye hol zihloshi khait ashi da atkil inla ashi da hojo pahan neda o kodichi hashin sogoshi ben kilchita hodini tal. So what is a healthy relationship? You know, what is a relationship? What is a jono ya tehol ya jil do another, you know, you might start making a life together, possibly if you're a young youth. And so what is a healthy relationship? And this part of the section is very awesome. When we, if we have, you know, a live audience, we usually tend to get some good feedback, or we ask the audience, what is a healthy relationship? But for a lot of us, maybe we weren't told or we weren't advised on what a relationship is and what it means for it to be healthy. So Asian machine sogoda sa ben kilchehones kilchehoes he masan don hit she san kitche yada ero da it's a adult da chuk adij a sahot a holjish. um so there's a lot of people that have not been informed of what a relationship is. So
Elton, I do want to add, for a healthy relationship, we as adults have to realize that teen relationships are very different than adult relationships, in that, you know, there's different emotions, there's different aspects of that teen relationship, whereas adults, you know, we think of longevity and such, or we may even figure out, okay, this is what I want out of a relationship. Whereas a teen, and they're starting a relationship, they're not sure what type of relationship they want. They don't know what they really want for the future. So there's a lot of what ifs in a teen dating relationship.
thank you, Natasha. So on this slide, we have characteristics of a healthy relationship. So first of all, we have mutual respect in each other and give the benefit of the doubt, you know, and of others' boundaries. Trust, you know, placing trust in each other and give the benefit of the doubt. Honesty builds trust and strengthens the relationship. Next, we have honesty, you know, builds trust and strengthens the relationship. Compromise, each partner does not always get his or her way. Acknowledge different points of view and be willing to give and take. So each person has their own opinion, each person has their own way of thinking. So again, like I tell some individuals that do come to our office and seek our services, and if I'm teaching like domestic violence, what it is and what it is in a relationship. One thing we got to remember is each person is their own individual, and that's one thing we got to remember. And that's what's next on the box there. It says individuality should not compromise who he or she is, and the identity should not be based on a partner. Be supportive of his or her partner and wanting to pursue new hobbies or make new friends. So remember that, you young folk, that each person has their own opinion, each person is their own individual. You cannot be controlling of that person. You cannot tell the person possibly how to dress or how to be in different situations. So that is not up to you if you're in a relationship. It's the individual has to keep their own individuality. Um, should say yeah Jenny they had she night Gatli don't spells and the Hadeshi Gatligi. Always remember that you don't know where that person is coming from. That person might have a different upbringing, a different past. They're not all living the same way of life as you are. So, in that respect, just be open minded to the person. Next, we have good communication. Speak honestly and openly to avoid miscommunication, sort out feelings, and first respect, these wishes and wait until both are ready to talk. So, those are some things that you need to look into. Next, we have anger control. Ahachin. Uh, how we express it can affect our relationships with others, need to be handled in healthy ways. Deep breath, counting to 10, or talking it out. So these are some very basic things that you can do if you get upset or you're angry. Take a step back, check yourself, see how things are going, and maybe you need to talk to the person you're with about your feelings, about why you're angry instead of being angry. So next we have fighting fair. Everyone argues at some point, and that's true. Stick to the subject and avoid insults. If the discussion gets too heated, step back, take a break. Problem solving, learning to solve problems and identify new solutions. Break the problem into small parts or talk through it. And again, this is characteristics of a healthy relationship. We have healthy in there, but yes, we will always come to a point sometimes where we might disagree. Hagishin sahado neto sa kesi do hot edo do le shijo de ya jinzo edo do nista. You have to be open-minded and understanding. So right there we have understanding. Take the time to understand what the feeling is. Take time to understand. Take time to understand what your feelings are, and a part of as learning your emotional intelligence. What makes you angry? What makes you sad? What makes you happy? Figure those things out. And I usually tell individuals that you need to usually find yourself before you start being involved with another person. Because if you haven't figured yourself out, it's going to be difficult being with someone else who hasn't figured themselves out too, possibly. And that's going to create friction in any relationship, whether it be young or old. you know whether you're a young person or an adult, it will make things difficult if you don't know your feelings, or you don't know how to process those feelings about different things in your life. Okay, so next we have self-confidence. When you are confident in yourself, it can the relationships with others, when you are confident in yourself, you show you're calm and comfortable enough to allow others to express, your opinions, their opinions, without forcing other opinions upon each other. So self-confidence. She yada just do ya she no hajo she yada just do what she being a role model, embody what respect means, inspire each other, friends, and family to also behave in a respectful way. So next we have in there, of course, we have a survey that has been done a couple of years back called the Youth Assessment Survey a couple of years back, and it hasn't been done in a while. But in that survey, it states that a lot of teenagers are sexually active. So in that regards, we have a healthy sexual relationship. Engage in a relationship that you are both comfortable with, and neither feels pressured or forced to engage in any sexual activity that is out his or her comfort zone without consent. So that is very important. So we will go ahead and move forward on the presentation. Tosh, was there anything that you might want to add here?
Okay, sorry about that. So yes, another characters that we haven't listed on this slide, is just because sometimes it can be a hush hush topic, is not that of a healthy sexual relationship. We always say no way, don't just either, right? So even though we say that our kids tend to still have a sexual relationship with their partner, so in that we have to remind our students, our kids, those that are starting a relationship at a younger age, that make sure when you do engage in a sexual relationship that both of you are comfortable with it, not forcing the other, or feeling pressure to start a sexual relationship or do acts, or engage in sexual activity that they're uncomfortable with. So that's just something that I do want to bring out, so that we understand that that part of the health relationship is that part of that sexual relationship, and making sure that both are comfortable in that area.
Thanks for chiming in, Tasha. So next we will go ahead and move forward to the slide. Is the teen equality wheel. We talk about dating violence. So right here we have nonviolence, and what we have is the teen equality wheel, the nonviolence wheel. So first we have negotiation and fairness, seeking mutual and satisfying resolutions to conflict, accepting change, and being willing to compromise. Again, you have to have that open mind when you expect to be in a relationship. Again, you guys will have different opinions, different ideas. You just have to be open-minded to each other. So non-threatening behavior. This can mean a lot. After taking this course, there were some things that I kind of saw that I needed to correct myself in as well, taking on this training before. So non-threatening behavior, talking and acting so that he or she feels safe and comfortable expressing him or herself on doing or saying things around you. So you gotta have that non-threatening behavior, non-judgmental behavior of what your partner or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or what you guys are going through at that time. So next we have, got my slides mixed up here. Okay, so respect, listening to him or her non-judgmentally, being emotionally affirming and understanding, valuing his or her opinions. Next, we have trust and support, supporting his or her goals in life, respecting his and her right to her own feelings, friends, activities, and opinions. Next, we have honest and accountability, accepting responsibility for self, acknowledging past use of violence, admitting being wrong, communicating openly and truthfully. Next, we have self-confidence and personal growth, respecting his or her personal identity and encouraging individual growth, freedom, supporting his or her security in their own worth. Next, we have shared power, taking mutual responsibility for recognizing influence on the relationship, making decisions together. Communication, willingness to have open and spontaneous dialogue, having a balance of giving and receiving. Problem solving to mutual benefit, learning to compromise without one overshadowing the other. So when we talk about dating and dating violence, you know, a lot of us teenagers, when I was a teenager, I did not know this wheel. I wasn't taught this wheel. There were some things I was taught traditionally in my background that, you know, things you're not supposed to do, things you're not supposed to say, things in different situations you're not supposed to be doing as a young man. So those were the only few tidbits that I had. And again, maybe some of us, some of the new young folk here or teenagers might not have that teaching, even if it's just small. So if you're a teenager out there, please look into this. Please look at the different types of nonviolence and teen equality, teen dating. Look it up, what it means. Don't just jump into a relationship. Please take a step back, you know, find out kind of who you are first if you can before engaging in a relationship. But by all means, teach yourself and, you know, have that self ability to advocate for yourself when you're in a relationship. So, Natasha, I'll hand it over to you.
So when we think about teen dating violence, you know, we sit here and say, okay, what is it really? But if you think about it, it's a pattern of emotional, verbal, sexual, or physical abuse used by one person in a current or past dating relationship to exert power and control over one or both partners, which, you know, could be a teenager. You know, like I said, we have a lot of our kids who are starting to date. Many of them may be 15, 16, and maybe started a relationship with somebody who's 17, 18. You know, so they're already considered an adult. So their mindsets are different. But if we have to also think, okay, what types of abuse could constitute violence, right? So all of this may include insults, different types of coercion, social sabotage, meaning, you know, they're always out there trying to figure out how to belittle them, even sexual harassment, stalking, threats, or acts of physical or sexual abuse. So the abusive partner uses this pattern of violent and coercive behavior to gain power and maintain control over the dating partner. This may also include abuse, harassment, and stalking from electronic devices, such as cell phones and computers, or even harassment through a third party, you know, having maybe their relatives come out and harass you, or maybe their friends and stuff like that. So all of this abusive stuff may be physical or mental, and a lot of the time, when they're doing it via third party, is a lot of it is mental, you know, saying stuff to the person instead of, you know, trying to help, you know, they actually engage in the activity. So we have to remember that it affects millions of teens each year. It occurs between two people in a close relationship. And like I've stated, there's physical violence, you know, just some of the examples: hitting, kicking, or pushing. There's sexual violence, forcing that partner to take part in a sexual act they may not want to be. Physical abuse, or sorry, psychological abuse, name calling, insulting, threatening, you know, and a lot of that does happen quite a bit. Then there's stalking, you know, and it's not saying that the person may be following you per se, like in their vehicle, but maybe they figured out how to track you on social media. You know, I've seen occurrences of this happening where, you know, they look at, okay, that person's location is here, you know, I can see them here. And so we do try to encourage, you know, turn off your locator on a lot of your social media apps so people don't see where you're at. You know, you don't want somebody to say, okay, well, this person's here again, maybe it's a good time to go harass them. Okay. And then stalking, like I said, is repeated unwanted or threatening phone calls or messages, or even showing up unwanted at your home, at schools, you know, or wherever you may be. So there's just some of that part of it. Okay, Dalton, next slide. So we're going to talk about some of the prevalence of teen dating. Dalton did kind of allude to the Navajo Youth Risk Behavior Survey, the last one being conducted in 2017, you know, due to the pandemic. You know, the program that does conduct this survey hasn't been able to get out there, but hopefully soon we can get more data that's relevant just to our Navajo students. Okay. So in 2017, the Navajo Youth Risk Behavior Survey showed that 6% of students said that they experienced some type of sexual dating violence. And this was just in high school. You know, they also interviewed middle school, but I didn't add that here. Then there's students who experience Physical dating violence was at 7%. We may think, okay, well, that's lower than 10%, you know, how much is that? But if you think about it, these are ones that were kind of like they were actually acknowledging that this happened. A lot of the kids will not acknowledge it, or they don't understand that that this is part of violence. You know, they just think it's part of a relationship. And then nationally, 1 in 9 high school girls is physically or sexually hurt by their dating partner. 45% of teen girls has known someone who has been pressured or forced into having sex with their partner. And then this also, we have to remember that girls and women between the ages 16 and 24 have the highest rate. So from our freshmen to our college age students, you know, all of this is happening. And sometimes, like we've stated, you know, they don't understand what's happening. They don't understand this is not part of a normal, healthy relationship. Okay, next slide. Okay, so in teens, 1 in 3 teens experience some type of abuse in their romantic relationship. May that be being coerced into doing stuff they don't want to, being told or being mitigated to say, okay, you can't do this, or you can't talk to that person. You know, you only talk to me. You have to be around me 24/7. Or even their person saying, you know what, if I text you, you better text right back or answer my calls. I don't care who you're with, what you're doing. You know, you respond to me. And then you have 1 in 3 teens reports knowing a friend or peer who has been hit, punched, kicked, or even slapped by their partner. And this starts the pattern of physical abuse and the cycle of abuse. So, and we'll get into that in a little bit later into this presentation. But I do want to reiterate here that teen males as well as females experience dating violence. It's not always the male beating on the girl. Sometimes it's the opposite. The girl's the one who's very uncomfortable with the male having female friends, or, you know, even going out with their family and stuff. So next slide. So we do want to remind everybody that it can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter what race you are, what gender, which age, your sexual orientation, your social economical status, how much education you've gotten, or even your type of religion. There is going to be, you know, teen dating violence is out there. It's nationwide. You know, we're not there's not avoidance here. You know, we have to remember that it's here. And in general, you know, Native Americans tend to have a higher rate of domestic violence or intimate partner violence happening as it goes unreported. Okay, next slide. And as we talked about, you know, stalking and such, you know, you also have to remember there's also technology, the abuse of technology, saying digital disrespect as it states here, but you have to remember they're saying stuff to you online, or they're saying stuff about you online, you know, and others are following suit and just repeating it or sharing it, you know, and not understanding, you know, is this even true? You know, did it even happen? And then, or like I stated earlier, the constant texting or threatening text messages, you know, where are you? Are you here? Who are you with? Are you with that person again? Oh, how come you don't love me? You know, and all this stuff, all those types of threatening messages, or even the ones that say, if you don't respond, I'm going to hurt myself, you know. And that's the hard part for a lot of, you know, youth these days, you know, when the partner starts to say, well, if you don't respond, I'm just going to hurt myself, and then you'll be the one to blame. So, you know, those kind of messages need to, you know, they need to be reported and need to be looked after. And then you have online stalking. Like I said, this person's following your social media, following you through social media, making, you know, you may be saying, well, I'm going with my family to this certain part of town, and that person shows up there. You know, you don't always have to live and let everybody know what you do through social media. You know, take a break from it. You know, don't say, I'm going to be here. Don't check in over wherever you're at. You know, just say, you know, oh, have a good day, everyone, kind of thing. Or, you know, using the ability to share your pictures. Maybe this person took pictures of you that you don't want shared via internet. You know, he's saying, well, if you don't respond to me, I'm going to share this on social media. Or even, you know, hacking into your social media account and saying, okay, well, this is me, and I'm going to say all this stuff to all these people. And that has happened to a lot of our youth. I'm not going to say that it hasn't, you know, but I've seen cases where it has, and this person had to fight tooth and nail to get all of that back off of social media. reporting it all the time, so it's hard for when somebody does impersonate another person, that it's hard for them to get that reputation back on social media. Okay, next slide. Delton, take it away.
Thank you, Natasha, for giving us some examples on teen dating violence and what it's about. So next we have why is dating violence prevalent? So why is it out there? Why is it, maybe it's a hush hush in some communities, maybe people don't talk about it. But again, DBHS does their best to try and educate and make aware the public and the community of what dating violence is. So that's our goal here for today, and we will move forward. And we have here, general conclusions, gender hierarchies, meaning that, if you're a guy, that you're supposed to be in charge of everything. There's that Western concept of being the man of the house and that you're the king of the castle. To this day and age, that is no longer true, that the gender roles have almost reversed. Again, just like Natasha was stating earlier, the abuse does not happen from the male to female, but vice versa. And it also does happen in the LGBTQ community. So views on romantic relationships, you might have a different view of what love means to you, and it might have a different meaning to the person you're dating. It might have, someone might think of it as more physical rather than emotional. The other person might think it's more emotional than physical. So there's going to be different views of what a romantic relationship is. Then there's also inexperience. A lot of youth today possibly don't know what it means to be in a dating relationship, or does not know what dating violence is, and they might think it's normal, but it's not normal. There should be no violence in any relationship. Next, we have independence. What does it truly mean to be independent? And does it mean, you have to be by yourself all the time? And for some of us, it's okay to be independent. It's okay to do things on your own. You don't have to be in a relationship to get things done in life. You can very much be self-empowered and completing a lot of projects. Or if you're a young adult, you're starting out on your own, you have your own job, your own vehicles, and you're dependent on nobody. That's good. You're independent person. And by all means, it shows a sense of empowerment, that there's no control from anybody there. So next we have peer pressured into a relationship. Just like Natasha was stating earlier, that, if you're not going to go out with me, this is what I'm going to do, kind of deal. So throwing ultimatums out there, and, that's not based on a healthy relationship. That's very toxic and unhealthy if they start talking to you like that. If your partner, girlfriend, boyfriend starts talking to you in this way. And some next slides here and further, we're going to have different ways of what is, a toxic relationship or unhealthy relationship. Okay, so next we have teen power and control. Like I was stating, this is going to be some examples. First, we have peer pressure, threatening to expose someone's weakness or spread rumors, telling malicious lies about an individual to a peer group. And this probably happens a lot, especially if you're a teenager. There's always gossip and rumors in the school hallways. And then this day and age, I bet it's a little bit more tough and difficult because we have social media. And a lot of people get on to social media and might be misinformed there as well. Anger and emotional abuse, putting her or him down, making her or him feel bad about themselves, name calling them, making them think they are crazy, kind of like gaslighting, playing mind games and humiliating one another, making them feel guilty about themselves for what they've done to you, or something that might have not done for you. So that's a way of anger and emotional abuse. Hashit am ben sakit ye na atlogishi Yeah. So just be aware of that part. Using social status, treating him or her like a servant, making all the decisions, acting like the master of the castle, being the one to define both men's and women's roles. Next, we have intimidation, making someone afraid by using looks, actions, gestures, smashing things, destroying property, abusing pets, and displaying weapons. So, anytime if you're in a relationship, if the person is around you and you feel scared, that's intimidation. That's a show of abuse. When the person does not feel safe around you anymore, that's a form of abuse. So these are some red flags for you all to look out for. Minimize, deny, and blaming, making light of the abuse and not taking concerns about it seriously. Saying the abuse didn't happen, shifting responsibility for the abusive behavior, saying he or she caused it. This is like in another way of saying, quote, like, I get too jealous, that's just me, that's just the way I am, kind of blowing it off that way. Or like, I told you to come with me and you didn't listen to me, so I had to grab your arm. So those are minimizing and blaming tactics of the abuser. So please listen out for those. Next, we have threats, making and or carrying out threats to do something to hurt another, threatening to leave, threatening to commit suicide, to report him or her to the police, making him or her drop the charges, making him or her do illegal things. So again, there's that form of manipulation. There's that form of it's because of you, I'm like this, it's because of you, I'm angry, it's because of you, I'm going to harm myself. If there's making statements like that, that's a red flag that you're in an abusive relationship and the person might need to get help. So at this point in time, the now which yastio, that has three no sani the hater, but in kishdi ajan what um sa the gia which yastio the yashona hot out the net hashit on the zanagi then the sanagishi ni na that's it because we don't know their background, we don't know where they're coming from, so they might have grown up in a violent home. Maybe that's the only way they know how to be, but that's no excuse for you to be in an abusive relationship. No one has any right to be in an abusive relationship. Everyone deserves to be happy and feel safe around each other. So that's one thing I want to make a point of. So next we have here sexual coercion, manipulating or making threats to get sex, getting her pregnant, threatening to take children away, getting someone drunk or drugged to get sex. So this type of sexual coercion, when the person does not want to engage in the activity, when the person becomes uncomfortable, that should be an automatic no, whether you're a male, female, whatever your partner situation is. If the person does not want to, be a part of the activity, do not pressure them. That's their choice. That's their own body. They make a decision. So next we have isolation, exclusion, controlling what another does when he who she he or sees and talks to, what he or she reads, goes, limiting outside involvement, using jealousy to justify action. Again, that's just another way of minimizing and blaming and using that technique of saying, I get jealous, I don't want you to be with anybody else, I want you to be with me, you should only be with me. No, no, if a person's saying that to you, that should be a red flag. They should be trustworthy and honest to say, hey, it's okay to go to holiday gatherings with your family. It's okay to go to your staff luncheon. It's okay to go to your club or your group or whatever hobbies you're doing. They should be supportive instead of saying, no way, though, stay with me. I don't know none. When no that's a sign of abuse. Okay, next we have That's the wheel of teen power and control. And we have here isolation, threats, sexual coercion, peer pressure, minimize, deny, and blaming. And we just kind of went over what I talked about. That portion is the wheel. And again, I made some examples of it. Is this abuse or not? So in this slide, we usually had feedback from the audience and we would kind of do a pop quiz. So what is isolation? What is isolation to you? What does that mean? What is threats? Threats could be, like I gave some examples for that wheel: sexual coercion, pressuring somebody into sex when they don't want to, minimize, deny, and blaming, like, oh, I didn't grab your arm that hard, or I didn't smack you that hard, it was just barely a little tap. So those are languages of minimizing and blaming. Anger and emotional abuse on social status, making them your servant, like, well, you better get me lunch when I ask you to, you better make me dinner, or saying things like, well, you better buy me this or you better buy me that or else. Those are some things that can happen in a relationship. So on this segment of what is teen dating abuse? Physical abuse, any intentional or unwanted contact with the other person's body. It does not have to leave a mark or bruise. Examples are some scratching, kicking, pulling hair, pushing, punching, pinching, and choking, strangling, or slapping. So any of these type of physical abuse is definitely not good. You need to report it to your friends, family, to the police, and state that this person laid their hands on me when I didn't want them to. So there is a whole nother legal action there. And again, if you're a person that is abusive, please take a step back and think about what you're doing. Think about why you're getting angry. Think about why you want to, put your hands on the other person. In this case, you should never think about putting your hands on another person out of anger and intentional to harm. So next, we have verbal and emotional abuse, saying or doing something to the other person that causes the person to be afraid, to have lower self-esteem, confidence, or manipulates or control the person's feeling, beliefs, or behaviors. And this can include like name calling, insulting the person or their family, where they're coming from, threatening of violence or harm, exposure of personal information, possibly racial slurs directed at the partner, spreading rumors, embarrassing them in front of others, preventing them from seeing or talking to family or friends, making the person feel guilty. So again, this is all verbal and emotional abuse. That's a hashit out at the sad na hagizo edo died a anan let the which yaltio to to yat e to non don jonago which yaltio onan let the bigger house no benina the najni chahada to yashkona. So just be careful of that type of verbal abuse. Nobody deserves this type of abuse. Any of these that are listed here, we all deserve to be happy and safe. So just remember that. Next, we have sexual abuse, and this can be again, like doing sexual coercion, making the person do something that they don't want to. You have every right to say no to any type of activity that they're trying to pressure you in. You have every right to your body, and get out of that situation. If you're in a situation where they're trying to pressure you, like at a party or like at a social gathering, if they get you separated, please get yourself out of that situation and report it and state that, hey, this person was trying to do these things to me. I didn't let them, but I got out of there. And don't feel peer pressure to do any type of sexual activity without your consent. So that's very important. Okay, so next slide here. And I'll hand it back to Natasha.
Okay, as we think about this whole dating violence issue, we have to remember that there's actually 3 different roles in dating violence. The one, as you can see on the slide, the top row is the abuser. the target, and then the bystander. So the abuser is the person who physically, sexually, verbally, or even emotionally hurts the dating partner. And then, like I said, it can be either the male or the female, or it's just, or if you have a same-sex couple, it could be either one. And then you have the victim. You have the person who is the one who's being hurt physically, sexually, verbally, or emotionally by their partner. And that, so you have to remember that's what that is. So there's the abuser, then there's the victim, and then you have the bystander. This is the person who's aware that the person is being abused in that relationship. They don't have to be there to say, I physically saw what happened. No, that the bystander is someone who actually knows what's going on. They've heard it through either from the abuser or the victim of what's going on. So they have to simply know that this is going on. So if you're a bystander, you have to take action as well to help the person who's being victimized in this relationship. It's not just going to be one side all the time, and sometimes you do have to choose. If both of them are your friends or your family members, you have to choose, okay, who needs help? Is it we need to get this situated so that, both parties are able to get the assistance they need. And then the bottom three slides, or the bottom three boxes on the slide, state the pattern of abuse. So we want to kind of go through this, but we also want to remind everybody that many people who are the target of dating violence find that the abuse occurs in a distinct pattern that is repeated over and over again. First, there's tension building, then explosion, and then the honeymoon phase. Each phase can be as short as a few seconds or as long as several years. But over time, the explosions may become more violent and more dangerous, while the honeymoon phase gets shorter and gradually disappears. We also have to remember that some targets of dating violence may never experience the honeymoon phase, just the tension buildup and the explosion phase. So if you keep continuing to look at the slide, the tension buildup is where things start to get tense. All that built up frustration is starting to come up. It's kind of like a water kettle. You have that water on the stove, it just kind of sits there and you bubbles and bubbles and bubbles. And then finally, when it heats up, you hear that whistling sound, so that's the explosion. And so that tension is released in a burst of physical, sexual, even verbal or emotional abuse. And that's the hard part for a lot of these people who are in this type of relationship. And as we become into adults, we kind of expect this. So we sit there and just wait for that explosion to happen and, get ready, because you already feel it coming. And then you say, okay, well, I'm just gonna wait for that honeymoon phase where the abuser tries to make the target stay in the relationship by apologizing or shifting the blame for the abuse, or even buying them gifts to apologize and say, okay, well, here, I'll give you more money to go shopping. Maybe you should go treat yourself. I'm sorry I hit you. I'm sorry I pulled out your hair. Here's some money. Maybe you can go to the salon and get a makeover or something. So all of that is part of the honeymoon phase. And sometimes it's not really the honeymoon phase. It's just the abuser using that to keep you in good graces so that he can maybe come back and utilize that, say, well, you took off to the salon. I didn't say you could, and start the abuse again. So you have to remember that not all the time will there be a honeymoon phase where it's all nice and sweet, that there may be episodes of more explosion, like I stated, where it's more violent and more dangerous, and where it could ultimately lead to a person being permanently injured, or even the possibility of death. Okay, next slide. So here are some behaviors. We've kind of discussed these already throughout our presentation, but we want to kind of hone in on it here. So behaviors that should raise a red flag for you as a person in a relationship, or maybe a bystander. So if you see that the person
So it says here, like if you see the constantly checking up on you, calling and texting and asking who you are with, again, these are some red flags. So calls you names or puts you down, and acts jealous and frequently accuses you of things. Oh, you're such a So yeah, shona, constantly checking up on you, tells you what to do or what to wear, how to act, and tells you like you're not going out in that, you better go change your clothes if you think you're gonna go hang out with friends in that outfit. I'm gonna make you change your clothes. If they're saying that to you, that's a definite red flag. You should be comfortable in what you wear in public. You should be comfortable in how you feel. It makes you feel you have that self-confidence. And okay, Natasha, I can give it back to you.
I do apologize. Our internet went out for a second. But okay, so we are threatens or causes physical harm or violence to himself or to themselves or to you. I've known women who've actually, went and ran outside and hit themselves against different items, and went to the hospital and said, well, he abused me again. And that person wasn't even home, just so that they could run off, and take off to wherever they wanted to. So that's something, you have to think about. And then when they start to threaten, that could be also, well, if you leave me, I'm going to hurt myself. If you leave me, I'm going to go, hurt our children or your pets, your livestock kind of thing. So all of that is parts of, red flags. Or unexpected bouts of rage, anger, or even explosive tempers. So you have to be careful of that. If you notice that this comes more frequently, stop and think, do I really want to be part of this relationship where this person is just going to get angry at anything and everything that I do or say, or even just because my family members stop by to say hi to me or something, So you have to remember that, it's kind of that, be careful what you say or what you do kind of thing. Or if they turn and start vandalizing and ruining your personal property, make sure, okay, why is he doing that? What was his justification? If there's not a justification for it, that means this person could ultimately start coming to hit you or your own belongings or even your family members. Okay, go ahead. So we have to think about the long-lasting effects that happen with unhealthy, abusive, and violent relationships. They have short and long-term negative effects, which could include severe consequences on a developing teen. Some of that could be experiences of symptoms of depression, anxiety, engaging in unhealthy behaviors such as using the use of tobacco, drugs, or even alcohol. They begin to exhibit antisocial behaviors. Maybe they start to lie. They start to engage in theft. They bully others because of the way they're bullied within that relationship, or they begin to hit others or physically abuse other people because of what they're experiencing, or even the expression or thoughts of suicide. Then there's also, we have to remember that these effects could also set the stage for problems in future relationships, including intimate partner violence, sexual violence perpetration, or even victimization throughout their lifetime. And it's not something, okay, they're more, if a teen is a part of violence in a dating relationship in their youth, and there's studies out there that show that, this is kind of what happens when they're an adult. They're used to that pattern of abuse. They've come accustomed to it, so that's what they expect. Like I said, they don't understand what an actual healthy relationship would look like. They're so used to the violence, so then that's what they're attracted to, and that's what they kind of feed to. But as parents, as peers, as educators, community members, we have to show that a healthy relationship is better than trying to go back into a violent one. Okay, next slide. And as we talk about ending teen dating violence, there's lots of avenues that we can, come across. And we can always say, well, don't let your kids date, right? So, but we're not going to be able to say no all the time. Our kids are going to do what they want to do. They may go behind your back and say, yeah, I'm going over to so and so's house, but they're maybe going to their partner's house instead that you didn't know about. So there are some avenues that we want to kind of discuss here as we go to the next slide and talk about how to end it. And these are just some concepts that we want to ingrain into everybody out there, and understand, that we all, as a community, as a whole, we have to engage and ensure that our teens are able to end the cycle of violence at a younger age. So with that, we want to teach safe and healthy relationship skills. And it starts at home. It honestly does. We have to show them, okay, this relationship I have with you as my child, as my niece, my nephew, my grandchild, this is how you should be treated in the outside in the real world. And so that's how I was taught, make sure you teach, you show how you were taught as you were growing up, to others, or you reiterate that in your relationship, because, you never know, the partner you get may not have, like Delta stated, they're not going to have been raised the same way you are. In my household, it was always, I love you, I hug you, hugs, and always doing stuff as a family, whereas maybe others were left home alone to fend for themselves, while the parents got to do whatever else they wanted. So that starts of an unhealthy relationship. Delton,
Yes.
anything on that one?
Yes, I'm gonna just kind of add to that and state that yes, we need to be careful. Teen dating is very fragile, and it can be like the slide before. It talks about having lasting effects. If the young person at this point in their life is only experienced to this type of dating violence, they will experience it possibly for the rest of their life if they're not educated or made aware that it's not appropriate, it's not something that they should be experiencing. But instead, everyone deserves a right to be safe and happy in a safe and happy relationship. They should not be in an abusive one. So again, here we talk about engage influential adults and peers, meaning that as a young person, you should look up to someone who um, treats people nice, who talks to people, and maybe helps kind of like role model. You know, again, people are in relationships, people are married, and yes, they have their ups and downs, but those couples figure a way to make it work. Maybe they're not always fighting, maybe they're not always upset about something to each other, but they're making it work. So any relationship long term, if you're an adult, we talk about working together in a relationship. So in a teen dating atmosphere, that's totally almost different to where we know as young folk, we might be in this person's life for a short time, getting to know them during the time that, a person that is young and maybe, experience other relationships in the future. So just be aware of that. You young folks, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, please wait, please wait on dating. Please wait to find out who you are as a person, what makes you angry, what makes you sad. Look into those types of research for yourself of learning who you are as a person. And to educators and people and community members, to adults, just have some patience with the teenagers as they go through this very fragile state in their development. So next we have disrupt in the developmental pathways toward partner violence. Again, we can, as a community or as at home, we have to have this discussion with our teenagers. If we don't, they will continue the cycle of violence. If you personally have been in a relationship of violence, um, I hope that you learned a way to get out of that relationship and understand that it wasn't healthy. And make sure to tell your your kids, if you have kids in that relationship, that that was not a healthy relationship, that everyone deserves to be happy and safe. Create protective environments, meaning that everyone should be safe when they fish. They should feel safe coming home. They should feel safe traveling with you. They should be safe. They should feel safe around you. No one at any time should be afraid of you. Okay. So make sure you're learning those different types of family bonding. Talk to one another, ask about each other's day. If you're at home at the dinner table, turn off your devices and talk to each other. Just even opening up that avenue of discussion, that open dialogue of communication with your youth. Or if you're in a relationship of violence, you reach out and talk to somebody and talk about the ways you can address your situation. So I'll give it back to you, Natasha.
Okay. So in following Dalton's lead on this disruptive developmental pathway towards partner violence, we have to remember that as we grow old, our youth are getting older, they have to also, like Dalton has stated before, acknowledge, okay, what triggers me, what gets me upset, what angers me. Am I noticing my proneness to lashing out at somebody or something within my family? Do I, once I get mad, do I go outside and kick my dog, kind of thing? You need to understand those types of developmental areas of our emotions, of our relationships and such. We have to, that's where we start to disrupt that pathway towards violence, understanding, okay, where can I get better at this? Where can I get better at expressing how I feel without, having to hit the wall. So that kind of stuff, as parents, as community members, we have to start engaging in those types of conversations with the youth. And then creating a protective environment. I guess that would be different for everybody, but we also have to say at home, it has to be some type of loving environment. It has to be a nurturing environment. All that kind of teaching that when we were younger, all that plays a part in our environments that our youth are growing up in. The saying says it takes a village to raise a child. That said, we have to remember that everyone that our child comes in contact, that person becomes a part of their environment. So if our youth today can find those key individuals that can help, booster a healthy individual, a healthy way of thinking, a healthy way of living, that's what we seek and that's what we need to figure for our youth. So those types of things we need to remember. And as youth, you have to have an active role in making sure your environment is healthy. Those people that are around you, though you may have family members, that may not act the same way you do, you as a person need to figure out, okay, how can I come out of this environment that may be negative right now? How can I create a positive out of it so where I feel safe, where I'm comfortable? And then with that, you have to think, okay, how can I strengthen the economic support for families? Meaning, okay, where can I get support should stuff at home not go right for me? Where can I figure out how, the source of income, maybe that negativity that you're seeing, maybe your family may not have all the money it needs, so maybe you're seeking, okay, where can I get assistance for school? Where can I figure out how to get the internet because everything's virtual now? So how can I get all of that for free, even though my family may not have it? So that as a community, that is actually a bigger community initiative where we need to figure out, okay, how can we help those individuals who need it the most, who need, to figure out how to move forward and make, like I said, a positive out of a negative environment. And then lastly, supporting those survivors so that we are able to increase safety and lessen the harm. We all know, there's, okay, everybody says, well, send them to a shelter. Sometimes it's not feasible to send them to a shelter because there's no shelters on the Navajo Nation. Okay, well, let them go to this person's house. Maybe that person has a lot of people at their house already, So where can we provide support as a family, as a community, as parents, grandparents, educators, friends? Where can you provide that support so that, it increases that person's safety and that the abuser or the abuse that they're receiving is lessened, or that, that there's help being sought for both parties, and that, there's that their end solution, is a positive one. Delton, do you want to add anything to those two?
Natasha, you brought up some great points in this presentation as far as strengthening, economic supports for families, support survivors to increase safety and lessen harm. Again, if a person is going through dating violence, if the person does decide to reach out to you specifically, whether you're a teen or you're an educator or you're a parent, a friend, family member, if they're reaching out to you, please don't have any judgments for the person that's experiencing violence. That's the last thing they need, is someone judging them on their behavior. If they're reaching out to you, that means they're reaching out for help. So if it's something that you're not comfortable with or not within your wheel well to talk to this person, you can do your best by always referring them to different resources, and you guys can make it a educational journey for both of you. You know, you can tell them, I'm not the maybe the best person to work with you on this, but you know, look out and find resources, and I believe we will have some resources here available for you on some of these slides, or Natasha will have it for you here. But please, if someone is reaching out to you, if they're experiencing dating violence, don't judge them. Just make sure you advocate and help them get the services they need. So, for this slide for now. So, but yeah, definitely, all relationships do tend to get rocky now and then, but it's up to us to make that change and make a difference in our own relationships. Or if you're a teen and you're experiencing dating violence, please reach out to someone for help.
And should you guys need to get a contact with us for any information, we're glad to share more information. You can reach Delton and I at our email addresses or even our office phones. We also have DBMHS has social medias platforms on Facebook and Instagram, so you can find us there on both platforms. We are listed as the Navajo Nation Division of Behavioral Mental Health Services.
Yes, this will conclude our presentation on teen dating violence. And again, as Natasha stated, we do have our contact information here, both with navajoNSN.gov, our office numbers here as well, Chinle and Kaibito, and we do our best and work under the Navajo Nation Division of Behavioral Mental Health Services. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram for daily or updated presentations on our Facebook Lives. So we want to thank Niagara again for inviting us to do this presentation for the youth and community members. We will hand it back to Niagara.
Natasha, Ado, Delton, for your presentation. An hilchon ado hiahet nihidini dole do hiahet kodo da nihinatigi do da isnolts agi kodo yahat o ashonda da da holya hidini dole tada ya da holya ko shadej kados silkesh na shadenolini in daha yaha ko amasana che naledo madoja da nolini shik nolini tada da holya ashonde انتهى يا كونشتيج كدوس تلكدا نوثنيجي نكدا أدا هوثيا نكديني دولة. Please continue to be safe, continue to take care of yourself. You know, teen dating violence is something that we don't widely talk about here. And my role as Miss Navajo Nation and the role as collaborating with the Division of Behavioral Mental Health Services is to break down these different barriers that are here within different communities that are here within our nation, and to address these different stigmas that we shouldn't be reaching out for help. And so when you hear something like that, you know, it's important to know that it is okay to reach out to help, that it is okay to know that you need help, especially in situations such as teen dating violence. And as young as we are, as young people, you know, I'm still a young person myself. So it's important to know that we all have something within us that tells us that instinctually that it's wrong, that something is going on, and we need to listen to that instinct that we have. According to the CDC report in 2010, about 10% of teens had reported being assaulted or being some type of physical violence toward them in a relationship. And about 29% reported the verbal, mental, and emotional that was previously discussed here. So if you take a look at those numbers, it's very alarming to hear, because that's 10 and 29% of our youth population who are being exposed to this type of environment, which we should not be. We should be happy and focusing on starting our lives and wanting to go to school, wanting to achieve our dreams and things of that matter. But we must also be aware that teens and young adults are people. And oftentimes do we make decisions for ourselves, even though we don't have all the necessary tools that we should be having. And so it's important to know that we can also, as myself, as the prevention specialist here, and even you who is watching, that we all have the tools that we need to help prevent teen dating violence. And so we need to also understand that healthy relationships consist of trust, consist of respect, compassion, and compromise, so that is always there and integrated into that relationship. I can remember growing up and hearing my nani talk to me about what it means to be in a meaningful relationship, what it means to respect your partner, what it means to know that you two are coming together to create a life for yourselves, but to do it in a timely manner when you are ready, when the other person is ready as well. These are teachings that are already integrated within our traditional ways of life. And so, with that, I really appreciate the traditional look in Navajo that was provided by Dalton, and then also the other side of it provided by Natasha. And I really do appreciate the work that the Navajo Nation Division of Behavioral Mental Health Services do for our people across the Navajo Nation and outside of the Navajo Nation as well. So for everyone who watched here today, for everyone who was able to learn something today or take away something here, please know that there are support systems out there for you. There are services out there for you if you do need it, if you do need to talk to somebody. Those resources were provided to you here today. And so with that, thank you. Please take care of yourself, watch your surroundings, and be mindful that we are still within this COVID-19 pandemic, hence this virtual collaboration that we're having here today. So thank you all again, and a big thank you to Dalton Francis, Natasha Bitsui for the work that they do for our Navajo people. So akun sagoshin kodon hijahasti